Today I'm going to make a fish Florentine, which basically in English means white fish cooked on top of a bed of spinach with mashed potato on the sides, finished with a cheese sauce that's been gratinated underneath the grill or in the oven. This dish can be made before it's required and stored in the fridge, and then finished off by baking in the oven, or it can be made and then grilled when it's at the end to finish off the cooking. The ingredients are, for the mashed potatoes, 1 pound of unprepared potatoes, salt and half an egg yolk to bind the potatoes once they're cooked, with a little bit of butter. The fish, there's 2 portions of white fish there, with 4 ounces of pre-cooked spinach that I prepared for freezing in the last video. About 2 ounces of butter to make a roux with a little bit of flour and seasoning, and cheese and the other half of the egg yolk for the cheese sauce with half a pint of milk. So let's start. The first thing I'm going to do is to salt the potatoes and put them on to boil. Then I'll turn them down and let them simmer until they're cooked. Because these potatoes are my own potatoes that I've grown at the allotment, they do actually tend to cook quicker than purchased potatoes. So they'll boil for about 10 to 15 minutes before I will mash them. So they've now gone on. The next part is to take the fillets, and they've been skinned, and I'll just fold them over and I'll place them in this saucepan and this little pan, like so. I'll place some fish stock in the pan, and then I'll add the milk, and I'll use this milk once the fish is cooked to make the cheese sauce. So I can do this any time, so I'll put this on to cook, and I'll just use a plate over the top of the pan to enable it to steam at the same time. Poach for about 5 minutes. So that's the first job. While I'm waiting for the fish milk to come to the boil, I will lightly grease the bottom of these serving dishes. If I swing round, you'll see that the fish is now just starting to come up to the boil, so I'll turn this right down. I'll put the plate back on the top so it cooks slowly. Right, coming back to the serving dishes, now because I'm going to have separate vegetables with these, I'm just going to prepare this, put it in the fridge, then finish it off in the oven later. So I won't bother to reheat the spinach because that will be done in the oven. So I'll halve the spinach and place it in the centre of each of the serving dishes. so. Then when the fish is cooked, don't want it to boil over. When the fish is cooked, I'll place the fish on the top of the spinach. Right, potatoes are now boiling, so I'm just going to take them off over to the sink and take the scum off the top. I'll remove the scum from the potatoes. I'll put them back on the stove and bring them back to the boil. The fish, I think, is now cooked sufficiently. So I'm just going to lift the fish out of the milk and place it on top of the spinach. Just drain off any excess liquid. If it's too wet, obviously it will thin down the cheese sauce. We don't want that to happen. So lift out the fish, drain off any excess liquid and just place it on top of the spinach. Now, there are several ways to thicken this cooking liquor to make the sauce. The traditional method is to make a roux with equal quantities of flour and butter, cook it out for a couple of minutes without any colour, then gradually add the hot milk to the roux to make it into a sauce. The second method is to make what's known as a manipulated butter. That's where you mix equal quantities of flour and butter together and you drop that into this liquid and you whisk it in until it thickens a sauce. The third method is to use something like corn flour, a thickening agent. I'm going to use the manipulated butter method today. So I'm going to take equal quantities of flour and butter and mix them together. So I'll just take about half of this butter and I'll put it in that jug, which you can't see. Right, I've just added butter to that measuring jug. I do have a spoon here to add this flour. So I'll just add some flour to that butter. Let's give it a mix. Just a touch more flour. Mix it together. If I was dealing with larger quantities, I would actually make a roux and make obviously a large pot of sauce. But this is only for two of us. So what I'll do now is just to drop this in the milk. I won't put it all in just in case it's too much. Got a larger whisk. Just bring it off the heat. Right, it's now all combined to make a sauce. I've finished whisking, I'm not going to whisk anymore. Get rid of that. I'm going to take half the cheese and add it to the sauce. And let the cheese melt. The next job is to just separate this egg, because I only want half a yolk in the potatoes and half in the sauce. So I'll just break the egg, drop it between the two shells and put that in the measuring jug. I'll use that for something else. Now, to help, normally I wouldn't put any milk in here, I'll just add the sauce to the egg yolk, but because I want to split it in half, it will be easier to add just a fraction of milk and whisk it up so it's spread evenly. Then I'll put some in the potato and some in the cheese sauce. Right, I've added just a little bit of milk to the egg yolk. I'll give it a whisk and I'll save that, and I'll add some half to the potato in a minute and half to the cheese sauce. The potatoes are cooked, so I'm now going to take them over to the sink and drain them. They took about 10 minutes to cook. Right, I've drained the potatoes off. I've just put them back on the stove to remove any excess moisture. I will now add the rest of the butter. Half the egg. And then just mash them. Potatoes mashed. Right, the cheese sauce, I'll just finish off by add a little bit of sauce to the egg yolk. This is to warm the egg up slightly so it doesn't get a shock when you put it in with the rest of the sauce. Otherwise it could split. I'll just use a spoon to mix that in. So let's see. Cheese sauce. Firstly, I'm going to put some potato in a piping bag and just make a couple of rosettes at the end of this dish. So 1, 2. Right, the next stage is to add the sauce on top of the fish, and that we place it in a preheated oven. So I'll take the sauce. Those lumps that you can see are actually cheese, not lumpy sauce. just mask the fish and spinach. Then finally just sprinkle with some cheese, like so. And I'll place that in the oven to bake at about 180 degrees C. There's the fish dish ready for service. You could add a little bit of chopped parsley to that if you wished. It was in the oven for about 15 minutes, then under the grill just to cover it off for a few minutes. If you pre-make this and put it in the fridge, then give it a good 30 to 40 minutes in the oven to make sure it's heated right the way through. Hope you found this recipe useful. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.